clearly you've been reviewing consumer technology for how many years? The Wall Street Journal, were you there?
I did it at the Wall Street Journal for 22 years.
22.
Now, and at the end of last year, my esteemed partner, Kara Swisher, who was also a columnist at the Journal, and I broke off. I'm one of the oldest people running a startup right now with Kara called Recode, RECODE.net. And we also have a series of conferences, the Code Conference, and been a conference producer for a long time, and I admire this one as a professional. So it's been a long time.
Yeah. So you've seen a lot of things come and go. You've seen a lot of trends rise and fall.
Yeah.
I want to talk a bit, to get this started here, about what excites you these days, what scares you these days, and then let's think about what frustrates you these days in consumer technology. So let's take the first one first. What excites you these days?
Well, I think the whole AI and sensor area is the most exciting thing. I mean, obviously, we see it manifested mostly now through our smartphones, which have been a tremendous development. I mean, the computing power that everybody here has in their purse or pocket is substantially beyond what a desktop PC had when I started reviewing them. But we're going to see it manifested in all kinds of ways. You're going to see it in wearables. And we're just in the first inning of wearables. I think ultimately, if I had to guess, you're going to see these sensors, which will measure practical things like, location and what's the nearest good Greek restaurant, to health things. I honestly believe they will be able to figure out how to measure and count the glucose molecules through the skin, and stop the need for puncture and needles and test strips that have caused this, or helped or frustrated curing the diabetes epidemic. So I think it's going to be in clothing. It's going to be sewn into your clothing. There'll be patches. It's just, generally, it's the most exciting area.
I saw something recently, a startup that I was looking at, and they actually are trying to figure out how to put a sensor in the, wait for it, toilet. So as you expel your human waste, it actually is measuring potential.
This is actually, there are some people in Japan who have done this
already, okay.
And it may be something we don't like to talk about, but
we all do it.
Think of, think of the amazing potential if you could just very quickly analyze that and
every day
and produce baseline results, and then produce find anomalies.
Yeah, I think that one's just fascinating to me. So what's it really is. I mean, imagine every day you get a health check. Like, that's something that people can't do today.
And you should be able to then decide, do you want to let the doctor in on the results and that kind of thing.
Yeah. What scares you?
Pretty much everything in your talk. Pretty much 100% of everything in your talk. Look, we had another great talk which stressed ethics. And this goes along with sensors and AI in a big way. I mean, look, Cortana, which is, by the way, for those who don't know, is the Microsoft competitor to Siri. Siri's the best known one. Google has an excellent one as well. These are all excellent for where we are now. They're all going to look ridiculously primitive in not 10 years, but 4 years. And 10, all of this stuff is exciting and has positive benefits. I am personally not sure we are ready with the ethical precepts, with the and frankly, I'm sorry, I know the tech community doesn't like the government. We need laws. Can't seem to get any laws passed on anything, but we need laws and regulations and kind of a societal understanding of the limits to this. And we already see that we struggle with much more primitive problems caused by technology, like just the privacy issues. I mean, the United States of America does not have a privacy law. We do not have a privacy law or a privacy policy. They do in the EU, we don't have it. And that's nothing compared to this stuff. So yeah, that scares me.
You're welcome. Keeps you in business for a while. I think what scares me, I'm curious you're taking this as well, is actually security of our core infrastructure in our homes. So everyone probably here has a wireless router in their house.
Totally.
Many of them. Now these
you're
things,
totally right.
if you don't know, these things are built by the lowest bidder, probably somewhere in China, and they're great products, but there is no one actually patching.
They're not great products.
Okay, well
they're
I was being
terrible products. How many people here in their homes are using the wireless router given to them by the phone company or the cable company that provides their service? You all need, and you're all wealthy if you're here, or relatively wealthy. I'm sure there's some exceptions, but most of you are. Go home, get rid of that damn thing, and go out and buy a really good one, because you will be not perfectly secure, but you will be more secure. And by the way, your Wi-Fi will be a lot better and faster.
Yeah, it's true. That one scares me a lot, is security of our core devices.
Yeah.
So what is frustrating these days? You see so many products, and you've told me some zingers that you've had, but what just frustrates you generally about the space and technology these days?
Well, two things frustrate me. You know, that line that was in the video, which, by the way, I had no idea you guys were doing a video. Very nice. Thank you for the video. Sadly, there are many hours of more of that if you want it around the internet. I think what frustrates, in the very first line I wrote, was about how computers are too hard and it's not your fault. And that was partly to a kind of a declaration that I was going to be writing for the consumer and not for the techie, and that there was a lot of guilt. People had, and still have to some extent, guilt that they're dumb because they pick up their smartphone or their tablet or their laptop and they can't make it all work and they must be idiots. I mean, every day practically somebody comes up to me and says, I'm an idiot because I can't get this thing to work. And they're not. They're like some super duper smart, whatever, doctor or business person or whatever. They're much smarter than me, but they just don't get this. We've come a long way, but I still think two things that bother me are quality assurance. Some of the products that I see are astonishing. You can't believe anyone ever tested them in the company, whether it's software or hardware. Even Apple, which has very high quality ratings from consumers and very high customer satisfaction, as you know, brought out a software patch that was intended to fix a couple of bugs. There always are bugs in a new operating system. I'm not talking about the new phones, I'm talking about the operating system they brought out. So they brought out a patch. This is completely typical. And that patch made some people's phones unable to make phone calls and unable to send texts. That's kind of basic. You kind of want that, And so Apple had to yank it. It turned, I think the number I saw was 40,000 people. Yeah. That's a lot of people. It's a tiny number of people compared to the hundreds of millions that have this operating system, but still, somebody should have tested that better, even in Apple, which is at the top, really, in a sense of quality assurance. Believe me, I see products, so that's frustrating.
Yep.
The other thing is, I think we have such an abundance of choice. I mean, capitalism, free markets is all about choice. There's too many cereals on the supermarket shelf. You all know that. Well, there's too many apps. There's way too many apps. And I am not advocating any controls on, if everybody here wants to go write an app tomorrow, God bless you, I'm fine with it. But it's very hard to find the app you want. And for that matter, the best website you would like. And he and the team at Bing are trying to help you do that. The people at Google are trying to help you do that. But I think that's a frustration.
I wonder too, just poking on the apps a little bit. I mean, the notion of apps was important back in the day, I think, when you had these single function, different user experiences for different functions. But really, in many cases, apps are a wrapper around something you just want to do. And I always wonder, are we really seeing the peak of apps? And now, what search should be doing, and technology should be doing generally, is saying, what is your intent? And then how do I fulfill that intent?
I think in terms of apps versus the browser, this is one of these things that probably bores most of you and only interests techies, so I'll be really super quick. There's a debate about apps versus the browser. I'm on the app side of that. Even if the same data is coming through, the app gives you the opportunity to focus what you're doing on just that task, make a plane reservation or or looking up a medical symptom or whatever you're doing. So I'm on the side of that. It would be better if the devices and the software proposed your next action to you, but not in the scary way you showed.
Walt.
So
you know what? I will make sure you.
I will tell you something. 15, 20 years ago, I was writing this. I wasn't writing about all this AI stuff, but I was writing that software should propose the next thing you're going to do in whatever it is, if it's a word processor or whatever. And too often it relies on you to constantly tell it what to do, and it's like the village idiot living on your screen. So I'm for smarter software, smarter devices, things that are more anticipatory, things that learn your patterns, always with your permission.
Right.
And I like it, when a keyboard on a smartphone has observed what I've typed before and proposes the next word, because it's a sentence I often send.
Right. Let's think about some trends. So one of your great gifts is the ability to no, this is not going to be
the ability to write an article. That's it. Yeah.
I'm not being nice, them being mean. No, one of your gifts is actually breaking down very complex technology in a way that people who aren't in the technical space can understand it. So I think it'd be beneficial to the audience to talk about a few of these things now. The first one I'm excited about is payments. We heard a lot about Bitcoin yesterday. We hear a lot of our kids and my friends who are younger than I am talking about Venmo and all these new ways of actually taking money from one place and putting it somewhere else. What are you seeing in the space that is interesting to you?
It's going to be profoundly disrupted in the next 2-3 years, not in the next 10 or 15 years. It's going to be profoundly disrupted. From a number of directions. I mean, I'm not saying money's going away or that Bitcoin is going to replace currency or that you're not going to still use credit cards. 3 years from now at the Nantucket Project, you'll all still have credit cards and you'll be using them. But a lot of you will also be paying with your phones, paying with your smartwatches. Apple could fall on its face, but I think Apple has the best chance of anyone so far to break through this. And I'll just give you 2 things about this new thing that you may have read about called Apple Pay, which is coming out next month. One is Apple happens to have 500 million credit cards already because people have been buying songs on iTunes. People are buying apps on the App Store. So the first thing that software is going to say to you when it comes out next month, and it goes onto if you have an iPhone 6, you have to have an iPhone 6 for it to work, or the watch, which will be coming out in January, February, something like that. The first thing it's going to say to you is, would you like to use the card you're already using for iTunes? Boom. You click on it. There's no work. There's no hassle. There's no entering the credit card number, and that's there. The second thing is, they're not in the business. They have a different business model than Google, which tried and failed to do this, because they're not in the model of selling advertising and collecting a lot of information for search profiles or whatever. So they're never going to send it to, they're promising that they're never going to send it to the cloud and that they're going to generate a random number every time you pay. So that it's never going to transmit your real credit card number. There's 2 things. So that's one aspect of payment that I think is going to change a lot. The other is sending cash. I think Western Union and whoever else is in the business of sending cash now should be really worried. I reviewed a thing called Cash from a company called Square. Square is this company that a lot of you probably know, where if you're a food truck person, you get a way to accept payments. But they also have a thing where you can email money to people. You just CC them on the email, and you type in, it's an app or a website. It's nothing but a little number pad. You type in the amount of money you want to send, generates an email. I send it to Richard Saul Werman, who probably doesn't need it, but I send it to him. And I CC Square Cash, whatever the address is, and he gets it. And if he's never used it before, it's coming right out of my debit account, which I've put my debit card in if I want to use it. It's free, by the way, on both ends, completely free. I send it to him. If he wants the money, I owe him, let's say I owe him, I don't know, $150. If he wants that money, he puts his debit card in and he can receive money from other people. And as far as I know, it's been up and running for about a year and it's not been hacked or had any problems. So that's another example.
We should try it now. I'm Stefan at Bing.com. Everyone just try it right now. Whatever you feel is appropriate. I'll tell you if it works. I'll split it with you. And I agree. That one is actually a really cool.
You know what? I'll just take 5%. It'll be all right.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm also curious what you owe him $150 for. That could be an interesting conversation. Okay, so payments. That's a great one. I think television. Television. Just there is. Both.
All right. Here's my quick thing about television. There's two things. There's the television we used to call in the old days the television set, which is kind of like the crystal radio. You know, I mean, it's like. But there's the television, the box that you have in your house. It's low-hanging fruit. Every tech company knows it's low-hanging fruit. Every tech company knows how to reinvent it. It has it has the worst user interface of anything that you use heavily in your life. I mean, every other device you own has a far better interface, so it's ripe for complete reinvention. And there's a number of tech companies, Microsoft probably. You've already taken some steps with Xbox. Apple has been well publicized that they're trying to reinvent it. I'm sure other people are. Then there's the way it gets delivered. The programming gets delivered. And we all know from Netflix that there are better ways to do it. The thing that has held up at least Apple's effort, which has been well publicized, is not the reinvention of the television set, which, I mean, frankly, when and if they ever unveil it, might flop, might succeed. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know. But they also want to provide they want to provide cable TV in a way that's got more a la carte or smaller bundles or something where you have a lot more choice. And of course, the media companies and the cable companies they're happy to keep it like it is. So until the real lever of power there is in the hands of the content creators and the cable companies.
I just saw it was Comcast or Time Warner, one of them just introduced last week. It was a bundle. It was basic TV, but then it was the HBO, and then it was Amazon Prime for, I want to say, $39 a month. First time I've actually seen them begin to uncouple, even though you still have to have television, it's the basic tier, that's the simple
begin
one.
to bring in streaming as well.
Yeah.
If you saw that and it was one of those two companies, it's partly because they're trying right now to merge and get the government to like them. So
plus, they just love their customers, Walt.
Yeah.
Let's not be so cynical in this day and age. So we have these BMWs outside, cars.
Well, you spend a huge part of your life in cars, and until a few years ago, when you opened the door of your car, it was like a time machine. Before you even started the car, you had suddenly moved back to 1957. Your digital devices didn't work. There was nothing in your digital life that was reflected in the cabin of the car. I'm not talking about the cars was already run by a lot of computers under the hood. I'm talking about the cabin experience. It's begun to get better. I have to say, with all due respect to BMW, I owned a BMW till about a year ago. I may own another one. I now own a different brand of car, which I picked primarily because I thought it had better in-cabin electronics. They're still behind. They're still well behind. It's very fast-moving. The time cycles of the model development of cars are much slower than in tech. Some of them are just accommodating that by presenting a platform which you can then bring your smartphone into and take advantage of all those changes. But yeah, I think obviously the problem there is safety. So you have to have fantastic voice recognition in the car. Far better than Cortana, far better than Siri, far better than Google. And at least in my case, and I'm driving a direct competitor of BMW, so it's not a low-end car. The voice recognition on my phone is far better than the built-in voice recognition on the car. It has to get a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. 2.5 minutes. We can go so many directions. Let's do a lightning round on companies. So give me long and short on. Let's do Apple, Google, my alma mater, Microsoft, and Amazon. Give us the long and short in each of those in 2.5 minutes.
Okay, Apple. They have finally under Cook begun to show some new momentum. They've entered 2 new categories, or will be entering 2 new categories in the coming few months. My read on them is it's almost impossible to replace a historical figure like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. There are a number of them, but their problem is Steve Jobs died. They have to replace him. Tim Cook is a very smart guy. He's not Steve Jobs. So they have to execute, and they have to execute really well. And we'll see. Right now, I think they've gotten a charge of energy that they didn't have 6 months ago.
Yeah.
What was the next
so
one?
Google, I guess.
Google. Google is obviously doing great in search. They're doing great in certain measures in Android. Android owns the world of mobile phones. Their problem is that the fastest growing part of Android, and by some measures the biggest part of Android, I don't know for sure, but there are some analysts who say this, are versions of Android that do not have Google's services in them, do not have Google Maps, do not have Google Search, do not have the Google Play App Store. And so they make nothing from that.
Right.
Because they give away Android, and there's a purely open source version which is being used tremendously in China and elsewhere in Asia.
All of China, yeah.
And by Amazon. And so, and then the other problem that they have is there's only one hardware vendor who's really healthy who uses Android, and that's Samsung. So it's great for Samsung, but ideally they'd want more.
Amazon, Microsoft.
Amazon has yet to do a really successful hardware product beyond the Kindle black and white e-reader. Everything else they've done has not sold in the numbers that compete with Samsung or Apple or somebody like that. Their phone, I haven't seen sales numbers, but it didn't get good reviews, and they've just slashed the price to 99 cents. You can make of that what you will. Obviously, as a retailer, they're doing fine. And Microsoft has tremendous talent, including you, I might say. I'd never go there without being super impressed by the talent. They have an organizational problem that is very large. The company is very large. It has lots of bureaucracy that has to be dealt with. And it's still living off legacy things, and like Windows and Office, and it hasn't yet made a dent with its phones and its tablets, and that has to be resolved.
I think it's all fair criticism. I will put a plug in for Bing. Try it today. No.
I use it.
All right. Well, Walt, this was amazing.